Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of the Good Bit Podcast. We are here for an epic film this week, ladies and gents. What a film we have to unpack today. It is the 2014 modern day epic and classic from Christopher Nolan, the one and only Interstellar, with an interstellar cast and a stellar guest, ladies and gents. We have director and actor Fraser McGowan. I say director first because you have recently directed me. And we were just discussing this beforehand. We've signed a couple of NDAs without giving too much away of what we were working on. I guess we can vaguely discuss the process of working together.
That's it. You'll have to try and work our way around it as awkwardly as we can. We can say it was a feature film. So we've done a feature film together this year, which I thought was a blast. It was my first time directing a feature. So coming on to you guys, I thought everyone clicked really well. And like you said about working together, you were perfect as an actor, easy to direct, easy to work with. I mean, what more can you ask for, right?
Listen, I did not start this podcast looking for compliments, but since you gave me it, then that's fine. You know,
I'm coming in hot.
We'll go with that. Listen, the idea of obviously being easy to work with and stuff. I genuinely think that's more important sometimes than being this incredible actor, because as long as you're getting the job done. You know what I mean? There's directors out there like Ken Loach, for example, who uses real people instead of actors, because what he wants is the most kind of genuine performances out there. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I don't imagine how non-actors, quote unquote, would be to work with all the time. Maybe there is, some difficulties in terms of getting them to do stuff and working with them and improvising and stuff. But I think just being easy to work with is so important, to the point where when you're being directed or you're working with writers or other actors and stuff, if they don't dislike working with you, I think you've done your job, right?
Exactly. No, that's exactly it. And when you do that and you're easy to work with, it opens up communication to each other. It's more comfortable. The set in general is more comfortable, because if you're trying to, if you're the best of the best and you're focused so much on your work, it can create. It's there's a fine line of creating something that's too serious, but whereas it's important to have fun on set. And when you click with someone and people are genuine about it, you can sort of feel more free to discuss with each other ideas, and then you get to something even better, because it's all about collaboration at the end of the day. That's why we all do it. But yeah, exactly that. And in terms going back to saying about the cast as well, everyone came off I don't know if you guys chatted beforehand. I was sitting in the cars, everyone's coming across so genuine. It's weird because for me as an actor, I've had plenty of times where I've gone in and the chemistry's not been quite right, and it's been so awkward, and I'm crying inside. And but you guys came in, especially on the, I'll not say too much again, but in the pub scenes that I directed, you all came across so well. I'm sure the audience will see that too, because I was sitting as director, at the wee monitor, and I was looking at you all just working. And I thought, this feels like a bunch of mates having a pint, and that's exactly that. I was so pleased with it, how it all came out. I don't know about you, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, well, we didn't know each other very well, so I guess that's a good thing, a good sign that we were kind of given that impression of. But yeah, do you know what it was? I think we mentioned this to a few other of the castmates, as we were on those set days. When we first got started, and this is probably a very common thing. So getting that chemistry is really important, I think, and I guess that's why rehearsals important and stuff. But, you have to remember, we were coming out of lockdowns and the pandemic and stuff. So we didn't really have the luxury of all getting together all the time and going for drinks and stuff. So we did all of our rehearsal and stuff through Zoom. But as the days went on, we definitely became more comfortable with each other. And I definitely think we got a really nice vibe by the end of those days. And I think it will, hopefully, fingers crossed, come across on screen. But you were great to work with as well as a director sometimes. It's really great to talk to someone that is open to other ideas. You know what I mean? I mean, there's different ways you can look at it depending on the film that you're making. Sometimes we just need the director to be like, this is exactly what you're doing. Don't ask any questions, go for it. But I like the collaboration side of it. You know what I mean? And you come over and say, what do you think about this? And then we kind of develop that. So thank you for that. And hopefully everything turns out well. And then later on, when, the film is finished and stuff and we can watch it, you can come back on the podcast. We'll get a few of the cast on and we'll chat about the film then.
Perfect. I'll be happy for that. It's you saying about there, as director, see, I'm fairly early on in the career. Obviously, it's the first feature film I've done. So coming on, I knew that a lot of people would have experience where I didn't. Yeah. So coming on, I was a little nervous at first, but as I got to meet you guys, everyone was bringing ideas to the table, and you'll get projects sometimes for me as an actor, I've worked with directors, like you said, they tell you exactly how they want it to be. There's no questions asked,
Yeah.
and it can create this sort of like it gives me nerves as an actor. Like I prefer directing; it feels a little bit more comfortable, to be honest.
That's
But
interesting you said that. So you prefer directing?
it's such a complicated thing. I find it more comfortable in some ways, like I'm more natural with it.
Yeah.
But I've always kind of struggled with. I'm getting past it now. But in terms of the acting, the actor side of me, the opening up to be fully vulnerable, I found quite hard to begin with. Because I do bottle things up quite a lot. I'm bad for that.
Right.
But just recently, I mean, doing auditions, I just got rep, so I got represented. I got an agent for the acting, which I'm grateful for.
Nice.
Um, and yeah, no, just throughout doing auditions recently, I've kind of gravitated more towards acting again. It's like a split thing. I
It's
love
weird,
both,
right?
and if I could do both all the time, I'd
Yeah.
be set. But it's one of the things too where if I'm pulled, if my general career ends up being a director or an actor, I'd be happy either way, as long as it's in the industry and
Yeah.
in film, I'd be happy. I mean, for you, has directing ever stood out to you at all, or is there any other aspect of film that you like?
Well, I guess because I'm such a film fan, then I've throughout my kind of career at drama college or whatever, I got really into it, like celebrating and talking about the kind of history of films and stuff like that. So I have looked at directors' work specifically. I can't ever say that I've tried to be a director myself. I don't know how good I'd be at it. However, the kind of dream for me, I suppose, is to be a performer, not necessarily an actor, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't have to be. I don't have a character with a script on a stage. You know what I mean? I feel like I can perform in different ways.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess when you're kind of working on your own, and if you're doing self tapes and things like that, you kind of need to direct yourself in some ways.
Mhm.
But just by getting experience and you're working with younger actors or whatever, you end up just giving them advice and just helping just through your own experience and stuff. So, no, to answer your question, I've never thought I want to be a director, but I feel like it is something that if I was to lean into, I probably would enjoy. I don't know if it's because, like, maybe I don't know how you feel about it, but maybe if you see something in your head, it's probably quite satisfying, like seeing it come to life.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Dark Devices was a bit different for me again because I came onto it not having written the script and I didn't have all these layers to it beforehand. So I came on and I was like, my job was to best adapt the screenplay and then implement my vision wherever I see
Mm,
fit. But when I started directing, like exactly what you said, I found it's quite therapeutic. It's like a big sandbox because you can just make whatever you want and then tell it as a story. And I noticed that doing acting classes
mm.
a few years ago, I was originally set out for acting, and I just find myself like I know a few directors speak about this, just sitting rewriting my own lines. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if we just took that whole section out and put this in instead? And I ended up changing the whole thing, which the teachers kind of got mad for, but fair enough.
Yeah.
And then I'd end up with something quite different. And I thought, okay, I quite like directing, I quite like writing, and I like the acting as well. I was trying to find this mix, but recently it's just been pulled towards directing, so I'm more known for that, which I'm happy about, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, absolutely. You recently were working on something strawberry milkshake, right? Were you writing that? Were you directing that? What was that for?
Yeah, so I originally wrote that. It was actually meant to be a Fringe performance.
All
I
right.
was intending it to be live. I noticed you'd done Fringe recently. It looked fantastic, by the way.
Thanks.
Um, Congratulations on that, because I've never done Fringe. That's another thing with the acting saying about the anxiety and things like that and vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like theatre's been it's quite hard to get into, but
It's
I love
definitely,
it.
yeah. It was a bucket list thing, definitely, to say, you performed at the Fringe. But I mean, listen, it happens every year, so there's no way that you can just be like, oh, there's no way I'll do that. It'll definitely come around.
Did you so just quickly off topic, I guess, well, with the Fringe, did you perform that every day? Was it a set week or 2 weeks, or how did that work? Was it the month? What?
No, we only did a few performances actually, because it was with quite a small company, and it was so it was called Hope Rising, and it was the Easter story. That this company would put on these kind of religious stories. I don't know if it was every Easter and every Christmas, but they do this kind of story and they kind of adapt it to whatever they're doing. Sometimes it's like immersive, sometimes it's traditional, and sometimes it's outdoors and things like that. But it went so well this past Easter, someone said to them, "Oh, well, you should maybe try doing it at the Fringe."
Hmm,
So it was more of a trial run for the company. So we just did a couple of days or a few
okay.
days. So we only had a few performances, but then I have a couple of friends who did the whole 25 days in a row sort of thing,
Oh, exhausting
which
that.
is
That's
just
got to
nuts.
be.
Yeah.
But yeah, Strawberry Milkshake. That's one recently that doing Dark Devices sort of inspired me to write this one. Actually, it's it's my own sort of take on like what the film explores, but me and you obviously have done recently. So Dark Devices, it deals with the mental health, it deals with addiction, alcohol abuse, all these things. And for me, I mean, speaking for everyone, we all have our own sort of pleasures and things that we're addicted to more or less. So I sat down. This was actually after Block One of filming, so we'd done all the pub stuff. Um, got home and I thought, okay, I've got an idea here. So I just took a few notes, and eventually came into this 10-page script. And for me, again, going to like what I find was a big learning curve on Dark Devices was how different it was in terms of the script compared to what I usually write.
Right.
So when the script's different, the style's different, everything changes to sort of when you're adapting the script. So I wrote this Strawberry Milkshake. It's a right abstract. It's weird. If that's the best way to explain it, it's weird. It's quite art housey. So that came about, and then a few actors. So Emma, that was on Dark Devices, she reached out to me via email. Robert as well, which they're both
Mhm.
talented. All the cast. I was glad even a few of them were interested. So they emailed, got them on board, and then we went to Broadscope Studios. I don't know if you've been there. That's in Glasgow, so it's
I know of
near the
it, yeah.
centre. I'm crap with directions and geography.
And by the
um,
way, Fraser was my driver to set most mornings, and
oh no, no.
crap
I'll
with
just
directions.
we'll pretend that never happened.
Listen, we made it in one piece. Everything was all right.
A to B, that's it.
That's true.
But yes, that was recent. That was last month. It was meant to be the first, second, and third of October, but the last day got delayed. So we filmed the whole thing in 3 days, which is pretty impressive.
Absolutely.
And again, it deals with this addiction. So the milkshake in it, it's a metaphor. So I don't know. Some inspiration there came from. I love Stanley Kubrick. I love him as a director. A Clockwork Orange, one of my favorite films
Yep.
ever. I don't know if that, the opening scene that opens on a pint of milk, which what other film does that? So that kind of inspired me, I think, in some ways. And the milkshake in my film, it's an embodiment of pleasure. So everyone's
Mm.
trying to get this milk because it's everything in a bottle. It's everything you could ask for, and obviously it's corrosive and it leads people down a dark path. Uh, it was a proper fun shoot, and in Broadscope Studios, the lighting is perfect. They've got these
Mm.
big blackout windows. Um, and we used these RGB lights, so it was all colourful. It was pink, it was blue, and it takes place in a void. So I've got Peter Johnston. I don't know if you met him. He was the first AC on Dark Devices. So he was assistant camera for Daniel.
Peter, yeah, he was in the car with us, yeah.
Yeah, Peter. So he co-directed it with me because he's it never clicked with me until then. But Kerry was like, Peter ultimately wants to do directing. I was like, okay, right, let's bring him on here, and then we
Yeah,
worked together.
he's learning from
And
you.
yeah, well, it's set in a void, and I'll have to send you as soon as it's done because it's going to the festivals and things. But it's a black backdrop, basically. It's
Cool.
very theatre-esque because you're focused on the actors and the performance. There's nothing else there, and it's symbolism again for addiction. Nothing else matters but this fix. There's nothing around you, and yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it coming out because
Cool.
all the work people put in. It's I'm proud of it. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely looked really cool anyway, the stuff I saw on the socials. But I know it's so difficult to kind of release things whilst things are in post production because, even the images are probably going to change, or even the characters are going to change how they look and stuff. So, yeah, definitely let us know when that's out and we can promote that on the socials as well. You mentioned Kubrick there.
Mhm.
As a potential aspiring director, who are some of your favourite directors? I've got a feeling you're probably going to say Christopher Nolan is probably going to be up near the top of your list.
Nolan, Nolan's up there. Nolan's up there because he has these big, bold sort of stories that he tells. A lot of them. I was sitting the other day talking to some mates, and we all realised like a lot of it that he explores is about time, and which
Yeah.
is interesting in itself. So don't blame him. But the way he tells his stories, how grounded it is something that I relate to quite a lot. So yeah, Stanley Kubrick, Spielberg's a big one as well. Absolutely love Spielberg. There's plenty to even Matt Reeves, which he's directed more recent stuff. I don't know if you've watched the new Planet of the Apes trilogy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I love those movies. They're so good because Matt Reeves picked it up in the second one. The first one, I can't remember who directed the first one. Um,
I'll find out, but the first one's cracking.
the
Um,
first one's cracking. It's annoying that I can't remember the name. So Matt Reeves picked it up on the second and then the third. And what I find fascinating about those two movies is there's not much dialogue in them whatsoever, but you're so fixed on the
Yeah.
performances of the motion capture. Like Andy Serkis killed it as Caesar, like one of my favorite performances. And you'll watch a lot of movies now, and you can pick up when things are CGI. There's like a hard to explain. It's like a rubbery look, and you can pick up on that a lot. But in the Planet of the Apes movies, it looked flawless.
Did you watch? It was Rupert Wyatt, by the way, that directed the first one.
Oh right,
Um,
okay.
did you watch the She-Hulk Disney Plus series?
I've not. I've seen snippets of it on YouTube. I've not fully committed to it. Is
Yeah,
it 9 episodes? Have you watched?
I have seen it. Yeah, it's 8 or 9. So it's a really easy watch, right? So it's definitely one you can just throw on. It's not. It's what kind of lesser serious side of the Marvel stuff. Um, but it got a lot of flack because it isn't as serious and isn't as well written as other things and stuff. But I enjoyed the story and enjoyed the easiness of the watching. However, the thing that did kind of take me off of the kind of train of it was the CGI aspect of it. I thought, like, considering the fact that as Marvel, you just expect greatness because all their CGI is amazing, whether it comes to like fight scenes and explosions and things like that. But there was something about this. I don't know if it's just because what they tried to do with the She-Hulk character. But like when she was sitting down and she was still,
Uh-huh.
everything was fine. But when she would walk or dance or do something like that, then it did look a little bit ropey. I'd be interested to see what you think about that because, as you mentioned, the kind of rubbery look of the CGI stuff.
Uh-huh. I've seen the trailer, and what I mean. I never usually judge a trailer too hard because a lot of
Yeah.
the time studios get it out there to market it, and it's not all finished. But I noticed that with She-Hulk, it's the skin tones and the textures. I think that it's really weird. It's fully green, like on Mark Ruffalo's on his avatar, whatever you call it, when he's the Hulk. He's got like his stubble. You can see all the wrinkles and everything like that. Whereas on She-Hulk, it looked very
Very smooth
like
skin.
very smooth skin, yeah, and
Yeah.
it was just green. It was like a green hue that was just blasted up,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, I know they brought back. It's quite a recent. I don't know if I should spoil it or not. I know they brought back a certain character from one of the Hulk movies, which
Yeah.
they changed. Even he looks a bit weird to me in the series, but again, I know it's lower budget they work with. Again, low budget's still like 25 million, but
Is it different
but yeah,
budgets from the TV shows or the Disney Plus shows than it is to the films? It must be, right?
it's gotta be. I mean, some of the shows I've noticed that The Mandalorian,
Mm,
it's not Marvel, it's still Disney Star Wars. It looks very good.
yeah.
It's got its off moments, which I think a lot of TV does. I mean, one of my favorite shows is Breaking Bad.
Hmm.
When Gus Fring gets blown up, obviously. There's a little funny look to that as well, but it's TV, so it's
I think
fine.
that's all right though because of the severity of the explosion.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta look past
Yeah.
that.
I just
Um,
I sort of thought that I don't know if you felt the same, but when he walked out the room with his like face half
his
blown
eye
off,
hanging off it, rather.
yeah, his skull looked like metallic or something. I thought, has he had implants? But yeah.
I don't know. I don't know personally. But he's a great actor. He's in The Mandalorian as well, isn't he?
Oh yeah, I can never pronounce his name very well, but
Yeah.
he's a great actor.
It's escaping me just now, but yeah.
I'm sure he'll be back in the third. The third season's yet to come out, isn't it?
I believe the
Um,
trailer's dropping on Christmas Day or something for the
all
new
right.
season. Yeah.
I know that just talking about Marvel there as well. One that I am looking forward to is the new Black Panther. Obviously, it's the context of it's very sad, so
Of
I'm
course.
curious to see how they handle that because a lot of Marvel, like we were saying, it's quite fun, it's bombastic, but when it comes to Black Panther 2, how are they going to navigate that? Because Namor's in it, and he's one of my favorite comic book characters. So I'm curious to see how they do him too. But
Yeah, I watched the first Black Panther film last night, like in preparation to seeing the new one, and it's funny. It's one of those films you look back on and just think it's such a refreshing Marvel film because I don't know if it's just the way it looks or the way it sounds or the way it feels, but there's something different about it than your usual superhero film. Maybe it's a little bit more gritty. The fights are a bit more brutal because a lot of like fist fights and like kicks to the face and stuff rather than explosions all the time. Although there is, of course, the occasional Marvel explosion. But yeah, and just in terms of what they're going to do, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do it. And I guess that's a good thing, right? The fact that we're curious to see how they're going to get round the very sad reality of it. What other Marvel films do you like? Are you a fan?
I am a fan because obviously, growing up, you'll have been the same. A lot of the Marvel stuff started to really come out.
Yeah.
I love, if I had to say there was my favorite, it'd be Infinity War. I love sad endings. Don't know if that says a lot about me or not. I just love sadistic endings. Maybe that's why I like Interstellar that we're going to
Yeah, I was
talk
going to
about.
say, yeah, it's a very sad film, but I mean, the ending of Infinity War, although sad, almost kind of refreshing as well, because you're like, oh
Yeah, because
wow,
like, yeah, when does the villain ever succeed? And
yeah,
it was nice to see that because a good villain, which I thought they'd done a good job with Thanos, was they're always the hero of their own story.
yeah,
So it was nice to see him sit down and think, yeah, I've done it, like he's the hero. That was interesting. I liked Endgame as well,
yeah,
not as much as I did Infinity War, but Endgame had a lot of the fan service, which I love Captain America. So when he lifted
yeah.
Thor's hammer, like that stuff, that I love that. Um, I'm trying to think of any others. I
What
mean,
always got me with Endgame, which I think is just an amazing film, and it's just like an absolute achievement in cinema, right? And the fact that this climax of all these films, but what got me was some of the fan reactions. You know how when like obviously if you've not seen it, I don't want to spoil too much about it, but like when people start to return from whatever, people are just going nuts as if they didn't expect it to happen. And I was
yeah.
like, come on, it's like
Yeah,
the
like the
last
most
film.
obvious characters. I know. I knew that from. I was starting to tear up in Infinity War, but I knew as soon as Tom Holland evaporated, I thought, nah, there's no way he's coming
No, no
back. They
way.
can't do that.
Yeah,
They can't do that. Um,
yeah,
Going back, so I'm thinking as well, Black Panther, like you were saying, it was very. There was something very refreshing about it. I think the
yeah,
culture changed. I like Shang-Chi as well for that. I like it's exploring these different parts of the world.
totally.
But Black Panther, I think another big part I liked it for was the music. That's why I love Interstellar, Kubrick's films. Music's a big part of a film for me. If the soundtrack's not quite there, I'm not going to care about it as much usually. Like the music really brings the emotion out. I mean, Hans Zimmer stuff, I love his stuff. Like for example, Interstellar, Dune. Have you seen the new Dune
I
with Timothy
haven't know, but
Chalamet?
it's on my list. Yeah, but I've loved to
It's
have seen
good.
that in the cinema because of the sound. You know,
Oh yeah, they had the bagpipes in there, and as a Scotsman, I was like, yeah, yeah, let's
very
do that.
nice,
It really hit the ears. um, but
nice.
yeah, it was good too. But it's not one of my favorites. I mean, Hans Zimmer, like how it's hard to live up to a lot of the stuff he's done. It's like he's done The Lion King. He keeps upping
Yeah,
it. It's like how much more can you up it? Because some of these films are absolutely phenomenal. Inception is another one. It's not as. I mean, I've heard some people saying about Interstellar that. Um, they didn't quite fully understand it, but it was Inception that totally confused me. I had to watch about 3, 4 times to really understand
they're
what's
both
happening.
they're both pretty bad for that. But the one that really got me was Tenet.
Do you know what? That's the one I've not watched. The only one. The
Yeah,
only
that,
one.
that one was a little bit. That one kind of. I saw it again in the cinema, and I was like, I understand it more, but still, there's. But I guess that's the nature of his films, though, right? You know, like you're still thinking about it to this day, and that's what makes him unique. You know, the Hans Zimmer score that I like is from Dunkirk.
Oh yeah.
Because I've like obviously when you're in the cinema, regardless if it's like an IMAX or 4DX or whatever, the sound is still awesome regardless of the film because it's the cinema, you know.
Mhm.
But Dunkirk was the film that I was like, this is so loud, but like, and it was more so like the sound effects, you know,
Oh,
and
see when the jets flew past, it was like
crazy.
your eardrums, like it was sore.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's another one like that a kind of pairing of Nolan and Hans Zimmer. You know, they seem to have a good relationship going on.
Yeah, that's a big. I mean, I've got so on the short films that I do, and then obviously when I work on Cult of Elves, which is another thing I've got coming up.
Yeah,
I've got a composer I always work with, and I think if you've got that director composer relationship there, I mean, I consider the guy that does my stuff as a friend. So speaking with him on and off film, we seem to kind of be on the same wavelength. So it's like his music, like what I'm saying about what I find as a great movie is it's like he takes my ideas and like if he could make it into a sound, that's what he does. And
yeah.
and that's what makes it that much better. I'm trying to think of others. I mean, Kubrick I've said about is a big one.
Well,
There's
there's
so
John
many
Williams.
people. John Williams. Oh yeah, of
You
course. How
know,
how did I forget?
um,
Yeah.
I just love obviously when you get like a movie score that is distinctive to that film or that saga or whatever, like, you know, that's what makes it special. But I just like movie soundtracks. That's why I think, you know, the Black Panther soundtrack is great because they picked a lot of songs that really fit the kind of Wakanda style and theme.
Mm,
The She-Hulk soundtrack is great. We've got lots of
mm,
new stuff in there, which obviously might be frowned upon, but really fits, you know. So having that relationship and having the right choice of music is so important for these big
mm.
productions, you know. Um, In terms of watching films yourself, you mentioned the cinema there. Do you have any early memories that you can tell us about? Like, do you remember the first time you ever went to the cinema?
The earliest memory I can remember going to the cinema it was one of the Pirates of the Caribbean films, but there's that many. Let me think. It was the one with the mermaids in it.
Okay, I don't
Uh,
know. I mean, Curse of the Black Pearl was like 2003.
uh-huh.
Dead Man's Chest 2006,
hmm
and then there would have been a
It
bit
might have
later.
been it might have been the second or the third, but I remember that was one of the first movies I remember seeing because the mermaids scared the crap out of me. It's that scene Johnny Depp is I think it's the one where they've got the little voodoo doll and they keep chucking him and he's screaming and they
Got
stab it
you.
with the pins.
Yeah.
They pull him under the water and then it shows its fangs and stuff, and that scared me ever since. In terms of TV, the earliest TV I can remember watching is Doctor Who. Are you a big Doctor Who fan? Have you watched many?
I'm not. I don't dislike Doctor Who. I just don't. I have not seen enough to call myself a big fan, But I've liked everything I've seen.
Uh-huh. I remember there's one episode in particular. If something scares me, that's me remembering it for life. So that's
Yeah.
it was the one with the weeping angels in it. So it's these statues, and
Oh,
when you blink,
Blink.
yeah. Oh man,
Yeah.
there's a statue that's near my house. So when I was growing up, and honestly, I never went there again. um, but yeah, those are the earliest memories. But then after that, it was all the superhero stuff that was coming out. So
Yeah.
that's when I was younger. That's mainly what I went to see was all the big flashy stuff. Hugh Jackman is, I think, my favorite as Wolverine of
hmm
any of the superhero stuff. So that really stuck with me. A lot of people don't like Wolverine 2, the one in Japan, but I thought it was quite good.
What was
So
that? Is that like the Wolverine? It's called.
yeah, so
I
it's
thought
when
that
they
was really
fight.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot of people complained, obviously, the finale because they chucked the big bad guy and there was a big fight, which I mean they all do that essentially, but it's fun. It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Logan was very good.
Just a brilliant film, right?
Oh yeah, so have you seen the black and white version?
Yes, I have. I have.
Oh, it's so good. It looks so good in black and white. I've had this debate with Peter actually, because Cherry Red that I done last year, we were in the editing process, and I was like, how's this going to look? Because it's like a folklore tale. And I
Right.
thought it'd be quite cool to do in black and white. Plus, it's gothic. So there's the black dress, the black makeup, and it looks gothic. So I said to Peter, and Peter doesn't like black and white, and I'm going to let everyone know that. He put me on blast. He's like, and I don't like it because students use it in the first films and they try and make it look artsy. But I'm like, but when it works really well. Like Mad Max Fury Road, the
Mm.
monochrome edition's beautiful. One of my favorites, that action movie.
Do you know what I watched in black and white that really worked? It was
Mm.
Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Really?
Um,
Does it work well in black and white?
totally works in black and white because it is so distinctive with the colors. It's like all this kind of red and white kind of like color to the film. And I still don't know if they intensified some of the color, but when it comes black and white, it's really like striking.
Right. Also, like the lightning and things like that, that would look really good.
Yeah.
There's some that I would purposely just shows you how much of a geek I am, and I love it. I just get random movies, put it in black and white, and love it more for some reason. Just black and white looks good to me.
Listen, if
So
you want to do a black and white film next year, I'll help you out with that. I'll be in that one.
I was thinking, I love noir stuff. Anything
Yeah.
crime noir, like that'd be cool. This the character Rorschach in The Watchmen, for example. I
Right.
think something on him in black and white would look good. There's something about the face mask and the
Hmm.
hat and that sort of 1900s look that would look amazing.
I wonder if like Joker would be good in black and white, with the paint and stuff. That'd be pretty
Oh
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
Joker too. That's one of my favorite recent films because there's a lot coming out at the minute that I've not been just not been too bothered to watch. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's because obviously when we're both like you're acting in it and I've been directing stuff, I've been keeping busy in film. I don't know about you, but I find that I'm not watching film as much. I don't know if it's when I'm going through my busy spells or what. Because I'm doing film, I'm like,
Yeah.
can't be bothered.
I do go through phases, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that wants to watch everything and like I need to have an opinion on everything. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like I'm that guy that when people look at me and go, "Oh, you must know about this," So I want to try and know about it. But there is
Hmm.
so much. We're spoiled with the streaming services and stuff like that, and now films are back to a regular schedule of coming out frequently. I try to see as much as I can. I'm a big film fan, obviously, so like I'll try and stay on top of it. But I like the balance of watching new stuff with old. There's still so much old stuff I've never seen.
Yeah.
So it's trying to stay on top of that. And I love rewatching films too. I like getting like second and third opinions on films.
Oh yeah, there's a few that you can just watch over and over again. There's a few that I've got. I mean, again, A Clockwork Orange. I'm fascinated with that.
Yeah.
The Revenant I've watched a few times now
You
as
know, The
well.
Revenant is due a rewatch for me because I really liked it at the time, and I was in a cinema that was really cold, and it really
Oh, so
helped
it kind of
because,
felt
like,
like you were there
so I
in the
think it'd be
show.
interesting watching it in the house.
Yeah, yeah. I'm giving you take. It's good. It is a good one. Only thing I found about that one was it felt quite slow at times. The pacing was a
Yeah.
bit off to me, but I think it was because how simple the plot was. Not that that's a bad thing,
I
but it
think it
was
was on
about how,
purpose, though, right? Yeah.
yeah, revenge basically. Uh, like revenge. It's one of my. I'd say it's one of my favorite plot points. It depends on the way they handle it. A lot of people talk about the Revenant kind of it felt unsatisfying because like in your classic arcs you've got they go down this revenge path and they realize it's wrong. And the Revenant he kind of doesn't. He just goes for it and commits to it, which I love.
Yeah.
You've got the Northman that recently came out. It's a bit like
Didn't
that as
see it. I really
well.
wanted to. I really wanted to see it, but I missed it.
It's quite good. It's quite good. It's this revenge and Norse kind of mythology and Vikings, and I'm fascinated with all that. So I watched that when it came out in the cinema. Talking of Vikings, actually, I'm rambling on. My thoughts are everywhere.
Please, no, no.
Another good show. I don't know if you've watched it. I've spoke about it so many times on set. You've probably heard me and be like, "Shut up."
No, no.
The Last Kingdom. It's brilliant.
You
It
you
is.
definitely recommended this to me in the car, and I've not checked out, but I
Oh
definitely should.
man, it's so good. I prefer it to Vikings.
Right.
It's just that good to me. And House of Dragons quite good if you've been watching that
I've not seen
recently.
that one, but like it's one of those ones where so many people I know have watched it, so I'm kind of getting the lowdown from that. But you know the way sometimes when everybody's talking about it, if you don't know what they're talking about, you either A, get on it straight away, or B, don't want to watch it until it's kind of
Uh-huh.
died down a little bit. That's kind of
Yeah.
when it'll happen.
I'm like that with Stranger Things and Squid Game, and folk hate me for it.
I'm
I've
the
just
same for
not watched
Stranger
it.
Things. I'm the same.
Yeah,
Squid Game is really good, but I watched that because like it was lockdown and I was like, I need to watch something. But
yeah.
Squid Game is good. Stranger Things for me though, I watched the first season and really enjoyed it, but just never went back to it. So then it became the biggest show in the world, and I'm like, oh, I'm still on season one, and
Yeah.
I've just not done it.
Just be like, can't be arsed.
I'll get to it.
Yeah, House of Dragon is. I'm surprised at how like good that is. I found that I really like that. Game of Thrones, everyone's mixed on it. Season 78 kind of broke my heart a little
Right.
bit. So I was like, I don't know if I want to commit to House of Dragon, but
Are
I
you
did.
a
And
reader of the books, the Game of Thrones books?
no, I've started reading the Lord of the Rings books, and I was going to move on to um,
Ring of
the other
Power.
books. Yeah, but there's that many books to read. Like you were saying about film, there's that much on my list at the minute. Bernard Cornwell, that the Last Kingdom's based on. I want to read those too because I think there's about 10 plus books, and they're
Wow.
all quite thick chapters. So I've got that as well. But I'd like to read Game of Thrones. But the only thing I'm worried about there is that the book series isn't finished either. So I'd get to the end point and be like, what the happened
Well,
to
I
it?
think I think that's one of the big issues with the last couple of seasons of Game of Thrones, right? The fact that like these seasons, I don't know if it was more than one, I think it was more than one, but they were written for the show. Like the other ones are based on the books. But the
Mhm.
fact that it hasn't ended yet and the books have still got a story to be written. So I guess the books can go anywhere, which is kind of working in their favor. And then people are going to be like, oh, I prefer the books now because it's a different ending or whatever. But it's so funny when people get so caught up in fandoms like that. You get so defensive and so passionate about it. Right before we started recording, we were chatting about Star Wars.
Yeah,
And I said, save it till we're recording. So basically, you asked me which is my favorite Star Wars. Did I prefer like the originals or the sequels or the prequels and that sort of thing? And I genuinely go through phases where I'm like, I prefer these ones at this time. Like for example, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series has just been on, so I'm now kind of feeling like, oh, I love the prequels, because we were mentioning this, we both kind of grew up around that time where like Anakin Skywalker had like cool hair and like
yeah.
he had this
The
scar on
mullet.
his face, and like there was these cool things that you had when you were a kid. But then I recently watched the originals with my girlfriend, and it was the first time she'd seen them. So that was really interesting watching it from a different perspective because I'm not watching those films being like, on in the background. I've seen them a million times. I'm watching them being like, how's she going to react to this scene? And that was an interesting way to look at it as well. So to answer your question, I don't know what my favorite Star Wars is, but my top three would probably be A New Hope,
Mhm.
not in no particular order, A New Hope, Revenge of the Sith, and I do have a massive soft spot for The Force Awakens
Okay.
because I was 18 and it was like the first new Star Wars film ever. And
Yeah,
like I could go to the midnight screening, and you know, it was like this big thing to me. So because of that reason, I have a real
because it
soft
was
spot.
established to you, and you kind of knew what you loved Star Wars going into it. I
Yeah.
can see that. I agree with. I think A New Hope. It might be my favorite, and like you, I switch in between because I love Empire Strikes Back, but everybody does. That's
That's
most
the
people's
one,
favorite.
right? That's like the big
That's
one.
that's the one.
Yeah.
But I really like Return of the Jedi. Really like that. The green lightsaber change and stuff. I was fanboying over because
Yeah.
obviously I wasn't around when it came out, but like you were saying about with your partner, so my girlfriend, I sat down, I was like, okay, right, I'm gonna show you these because she's like, I hate Star Wars, whatever. I'm like, no, you don't, no, you don't. So I
I
sat her
didn't say
down.
that.
I sat her down, and by the end of it, she was crying. She loved it. It was, and that was like, yeah, this because of her reaction, I liked them even more.
Got you.
Uh, but I think because of that, the Return of the Jedi is my favorite. A New Hope, and then might be unpopular, but I really like Rogue One. I really like
That's not
Rogue One.
unpopular at all. Rogue One has got a lot of fans, and the only reason I don't connect with it as much as other people is just because it's outside of this kind of story, you know.
Yeah.
I guess it's not really, but because it's not in the Skywalker kind of saga,
Mhm.
I don't relate to it as much. But it's an amazing film.
I like the tone shift in it. I don't know if you noticed, but it was a little darker and grittier, and I thought that was really interesting. I
And
know,
that one scene in particular as well, with one particular character who
oh man,
lights
that made
his
that character
lightsaber
that
and
much
murders
better.
people. Yeah,
That scene made him so much better. I
yeah.
loved that scene. And I know there's talks about I don't know what they're gonna go with the future for Star Wars, but I've heard Zack Snyder's doing something. Might be a
Interesting.
film, and his films are very gritty and
Yeah,
dark. So I wonder how that's going to play out.
probably be
Speaking
4 hours
of,
long.
yeah, speaking of, I spoke a bit about Marvel. How do you feel about like the DC side of things?
Um, I prefer Marvel, right? Let's just get that clear. Definitely don't dislike the DC films, right? Because I feel like these are kind of niche films. Well, they started off as niche films, now they're the biggest ones in the world. But I like all of these types of films to do well. You know, I almost feel like the DC universe is so broken up and so divided. Whereas I mean, technically, the Dark Knight films are in the DC universe, you know, so and Joker and things like that, you know. But you can't look at them in the same way you look at, you know, Justice League, Aquaman, things like that. And these are films that I enjoyed when I saw them in the cinema. But I mean, I've got no urge to kind of go
Yeah.
back and rewatch them like I could do with the Marvel films, you know.
Did you see Black Adam?
I did. Yes, that's the most recent film I saw in the cinema.
What do you think?
I liked because I'm a massive fan of Dwayne Johnson. I love The Rock. I'm a big wrestling fan, so anything he's in, I'm going to enjoy. Um, but then again, I came out of it just being like, these things just end up being too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
like,
And there's a lot of CGI in that one. I liked it, and Dwayne Johnson again. I think he's such a heartwarming guy. You just can't help but like him. I
hardest
love
worker
the
in the room.
Jumanji stuff. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Jumanji, all that stuff's great. I think my favorite takeaway from it was an average good time. I thought, but Pierce Brosnan as Doctor Fate was
I
fantastic.
thought his character was really good, actually. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was brilliant. I thought he was really good. Black Adam again was cool. It's just a kind of the thing with the superhero stuff is it's the kind of final act that kind of gets me a bit.
Right?
Yeah, they
It
just kind
becomes
of
too much.
they're like, okay, we need to do something big now. Chuck everything at the screen,
Yeah.
bam, and
Yeah.
but I still thought it was fun. It was still very fun.
Yeah.
It's good to see that. We'll not spoil it because it's the most recent thing I think we spoke about. The end credit scene. One of my favorite characters ever.
Yes.
Interpretation.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Love him. Love him.
That's
Did you hear the
exciting.
recent news? Did you hear the recent news about The Witcher? Did you watch The Witcher
No, I
actually?
didn't know.
So Henry Cavill stepped down as the role. That completely shocked me.
I heard that news, yeah, but I just because I've not seen the show, I didn't know if it reached a conclusion or anything like that.
Yeah, like I'm surprised because he was signed on for 7 seasons, and then it got to the second. They've got the
7.
third coming out, and yeah, and then that's the last one. Uh, which it blew my mind because Liam Hemsworth's playing The Witcher now,
Wow.
but that came as a big shock because Henry Cavill's a massive fan of The Witcher and all that. I don't know if it's to do with other projects he's got come up.
Could be a Superman thing. You know,
Might,
that maybe
might
he's
be
had to
Man of
pick
Steel
favorites.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it
Well,
shocked me though because you saying about books actually. I've read The Witcher, and I'm one of the biggest Witcher fans ever in terms of the books. The
Cool.
games are pretty good too. I kind of do a bit of gaming here and there, not too much anymore. But The Witcher, the book series is fantastic. Which I'm quite sad that Henry Cavill stepped down because he loved it that much, and it's a weird thing to do as the main. You'll watch like a series where they recast extras and like supporting, but when it's the lead, it's weird. Like, how are they going to do that? Is it
Yeah.
like, oh, there's another universe has opened up? Here's like,
It's like The Crown,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, or Doctor Who,
Uh,
But at least that's kind
it's,
of explained a wee bit.
well, that's it. I mean, if it's magic, if it's fantasy, it's easier to
Right.
explain, I guess. It could be cursed, or it could have a spell put on him, something like
That's true.
that.
That's it. Well, speaking of spells, Matthew McConaughey goes through a horrible spell at times in the film that we're going to talk about today. Always try and find a
Oh, yeah.
segue, and it never works.
That's
Uh,
quite a good one. I respect it.
that was one of the worst ones ever. So listen, this is what happens with these films that on the podcast. When I've got a guest coming on, I message them and I say, "Look, you decide. You pick the film we want to talk about, which is one of your favorite movies or one you know really well." And you came back with Interstellar, which is a massive film, really thought-provoking film, very well made. Obviously, Christopher Nolan doesn't make bad films. Tell me why you picked Interstellar, because it's a film that I feel like everybody has an opinion on. I've never heard anyone be like, "Oh, that's my go-to." Maybe it's because it's so long or whatever. But why Interstellar is one of your favorites?
I realized that when I was picking it, when you asked me to pick up one of my favorites, I thought, I love Interstellar. A lot of folk like it, not love it. I'm
Yeah.
one of the ones that love it, and it's mainly because, so kind of, if we're linking what we were talking about before with Star Wars, what makes Star Wars fantastic is the family aspect. It's the family drama. It's the connection between all the characters and what like blood and all that. Um, and with Interstellar, I mean, I'm fascinated with space. I know a lot of
Mm,
people are, but like it deals with purpose in such a beautiful way because you've got the relationship with Matthew McConaughey and his daughter in the film, and it's the heart of the film. So you've got this space adventure, which I thought they done exceptionally well with the black holes. I know they got Chris Nolan, they got scientists on it to kind of make it more accurate. So it's that. It looked beautiful. And then again, talking about CGI, like you can pick up on it now, but with that film, I think it lives up even when it had come out 2014. It's
yeah.
just it looks beautiful. And again, it's the relationship father and daughter. It just yeah, it really stands
Absolutely,
out.
absolutely stunning film in terms of the way it looks, and I feel like that's almost becoming its own genre at times. Like how beautiful the film is to watch. It's like a stunning film. People criticize The Last Jedi in Star Wars, another mention of it. But like people say it's the most beautiful Star Wars film, and I would agree with that.
Mhm.
So yeah, I can totally understand that with watching this film. You could probably watch it at different times, and this definitely happens. You watch it at different times, and you take something different from it each time.
Yeah.
You said you just watched it. I don't know if you mentioned it earlier today or maybe last night, but how did it live up to your expectations watching it again for this?
I liked it even more the second time, and it's rare for a film to do that because you end up picking up on the flaws rather than
Right?
what makes it good. I mean, one aspect that I picked up on this time around watching it that didn't last time, and it was still one of my favorites then, is in the third act, he's rescued by the fifth dimension. And originally watching that, I thought it was another people, another civilization that
Mm.
was helping him and helping humanity. But in watching it again, I realized that through the dialogue and all these little details that it's actually humans. So it goes back to this sense of one of my favorite themes in any film's purpose. When a character questions purpose, and they go through their journey to figuring that out, and it's unique for each character in each film. And at the end, when obviously he's rescued by these people, he realizes that in that moment that he and his daughter save humanity because it's them saving themselves. They're coming through this other dimension to save them. And I think again that goes back to the father daughter relationship. Everything seems to link back to them, and it's the heart of the movie, and it deals with in a way sacrifice. It's about purpose of he. Which I find this very relatable. Not that I'm a father, I'm not, but in terms of being an artist, I think that for him, he questions his purpose as at the start of the film, you figure out okay, there's a decay here. People aren't eating, the crops aren't growing. He's urged to be a farmer, but he's a scientist and he's an explorer. People tell him to stick with the farm and tell him not to pursue his passion, but he tells him he can't help himself. They end up at this facility that's NASA, and then they
Yeah.
go on this mission. But he always looks up to the stars, and he goes with his passion. And in the end, obviously, it's about sacrifice and realization that his purpose wasn't to save the universe himself, but for his daughter to. And it's again this correspondent of love through space and time, which I just think is beautiful. It's one of the and the
Absolutely.
music, Hans Zimmer, the church organs that he played on in the film, the music hits so well in this one compared to all the other ones for me. You feel like you were saying about watching The Revenant when you were cold and it felt like you were
Yeah.
in the film. When those church organs hit, you feel like you're in it. And like I like to watch movies if it's not in the cinema at home, all the lights are off, and
Right.
I look like a little just in my blanket watching the TV, and you feel like you're in space, and the music and everything about it, I just absolutely adore. Uh, I know people going into it, I think a lot of the times I've heard people don't like it as much because they love 2001: A Space Odyssey and they
Yes.
expected something like that. But obviously, it's not, and I can see why because I love A Space Odyssey as well. Again, Kubrick's just
Yeah.
one of the best. There's that. There's if there's one thing I would say that people have mentioned to me that I can understand the criticism is, in the end, you figure out that, or time warps in the film. So when he gets back to Earth or Saturn or the space station, his daughter's older than him, and that's a powerful scene. So when he walks in that room, the family make way, and he speaks to his daughter who's 90s, and he's still in his 40s, and he sees his daughter, and she says to him, no father should have to watch the daughter die in front of them. That's a powerful scene. But people say that it just goes on slightly too long at the end, and I can see that because if
Okay.
they ended it at that moment, maybe it would have been better. But they don't. They drag it out a little bit. Obviously, he goes back up into space to save the others.
Yeah.
If they took that out, I'm not bothered, man. I love it either way. But
Yeah.
people saying that, I can understand why that the film is quite long. But
It is a long film. Yeah, it's an absolute epic, right? So the fact you're having this extra bit at the end didn't bother me either. But I guess that's a fair point. Um, I mean, you talk about the relationship that they have, right? That's a big part of kind of. I like a bunch of films like that where it's maybe not just the father daughter, but like just relationships in general that kind of drive the story. Whether it's
mhm,
like a brotherhood kind of thing or a siblinghood, I guess. But there's something about like parent child
yeah,
that is a little bit more closer to home, I guess. Um, and that scene where he's watching her through the bookshelves,
mhm,
like when I first watched it, like it totally floored me. And I'm not one of those guys that really gets emotional about films, and I'm not really a crier, really. Um,
mhm,
but it's one of those films that really hit, and like it was a scene that I was thinking about for days after, not
yeah,
just the film in general, but that scene in particular. And I've only watched the film once. Um, but I would probably argue this could be Matthew McConaughey's best performance, or maybe
oh
my
man, yeah,
favorite Matthew McConaughey performance. The kind of despair in his face when he's driving away from his
mhm,
child or from the house that the kind of I don't know if it was his childhood home, but his family home.
mhm,
Knowing he's going to do this, knowing the way time works, when
yeah,
he's going to go into space and all this time is going to have passed by the time he gets home. Um, I just feel like it was such a convincing performance from him. Whereas
mhm,
and you believe everything he's going through just from
yeah.
looking at his face. I just think it's a brilliant performance.
It's all in his eyes. He's a very, very good actor. I mean, I know his career sort of was on the down a little bit for a while, but it seemed to pick up again. He's obviously done The Wolf of Wall Street. He's
Mm.
done. I don't know if you watched Dallas Buyers Club. I thought that was another fantastic
That's
performance
right.
in
I
this.
think that was around that time as well, right? And then Mud as well came out around that time. So he
Mud,
had like
yeah.
three big ones around that time. Yeah.
So he started getting back on track, and then with this one, the scene that got me, like you were saying about watching to the bookshelf, and he's begging his daughter to tell him to stay. I think what makes the film, I think that's everything I like about the film in that one scene is because it shows human selfishness in a human way
Mm.
where you don't hate it because there's nothing more relatable than obviously at the end he's in this scene he's talking about I wish I never done this. And it's selfish because he's like, I wish I never ventured out for humanity and all that. but it's selfishness that you can excuse because he just wanted to spend time with his daughter, and it's a regret, and regret's a big thing. Obviously, that we've all got regrets, and I think that's essentially why I like the movie so much, is because there's all it's not just a black and white, there's good and evil. It's this moral sort of debate within yourself as to there's something you've got to do compared to what you want to do.
Yeah, and like, what would you do in that situation?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
It's like, yeah, the character. I mean, that's what I thought of when I was watching it as well. Is he's in this sticky spot where if he stays, he's just going to die a farmer. But if he leaves, he's going to do what he loves and potentially save his family.
Change
Obviously,
the world, yeah.
you end up later finding out that there's a bit of a lie there with Michael Caine, who another fantastic actor. Uh,
Absolutely.
he recently retired, did he not?
I don't know. He's getting on a bit now, is he not? Like,
Yes, I know. He used to slow down and let us do some good films. He's taking them all. He's getting all the roles. But no, you find out in the movie as well, there's a bit of a twist there. There's a few characters you hate, but in a way, that's another thing. Rewatching it the other night, I was like, I don't hate them so much because I can realize why they felt that way and why they done it.
yeah.
And that's what makes a good film. That's what I strive for in my writing. That I never write characters that are just purely one way. I like complexities because we all are. We've all done bad things. We've all done good things, and it's this exploration of what side are you further on,
Yeah.
and that's exactly why I love Interstellar. Um,
I
Matt
mean,
Damon, I thought was good in it too.
absolutely. I mean, I'm looking at the cast now on IMDb. It is just ridiculous, isn't it? I
Oh
mean, you've
no,
got Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain, John Lithgow, Timothy Chalamet, Michael Caine, Casey Affleck, Matt Damon. It's just name after name
heavy
after
hitters,
name.
heavy hitters. And what's the? Have you got it up there? What's the name of the little girl that plays the younger version of his daughter? Because she was fantastic.
Yeah, Mackenzie Foy is the actor's name.
Right.
And she was in the Twilight Saga.
Oh, was she? Didn't know that. But that chemistry from the earlier parts of the film
She's
is,
fantastic.
oh man, she's a fantastic actress as well. And the tears, it's that scene when she's begging him to stay. It's in the bedroom, and it's so moving. And throughout that, you care about that relationship the whole time. Whereas you get some films that they have the family aspect to show this is why you should care, and it's bombastic and it goes into this big thing. But in Interstellar, it sticks with that, and it's the heart throughout, and it goes back to it all the time. And you care for Matthew's McConaughey's part because you care about the daughter and how she
Right.
felt, and vice versa. I think it's fantastically written. There's a few nitpicks that people have. I could see why again, like it's
Yeah.
quite long, but it's one of the films I think I'll watch over and over. I just absolutely
And
adore
get
it.
something different from it all the time. Yeah, absolutely. It is currently rated number 26 on the top 250 movies of all time on IMDb. It won an Oscar in 2015 for best sound mixing. But I was thinking, I was like, it wasn't even in contention for best picture, which really shocked me. But then I looked
Yeah.
at the films that were up for it that year. So this was the year that Birdman won best picture. So it was Birdman, American Sniper, Boyhood, The Grand Budapest Hotel, The Imitation Game, Selma, The Theory of Everything, and Whiplash.
So it's
All
quite a good year.
absolutely incredible movies.
Whiplash I watched recently, actually. Fantastic.
Whiplash is incredible. Whiplash is a great
Oh,
film.
it is very good. It wasn't it? I think it was a short film, and then they made it into a
Yeah,
feature film. Uh,
yeah.
I don't know if it was the same cast or not, but what's the J.K. Simmons? He was absolutely brilliant in that film. He was so scary.
Not quite my tempo. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, there's so many good quotes from that. It's when he's slapping him as well. It's just
Oh,
brutal.
it's crazy.
Uh,
Best director this year was Alejandro Iñárritu for Birdman, but also nominated was Richard Linklater for Boyhood, which is just an incredible film as well. Bennett Miller for Foxcatcher, which I'm sure is about wrestling, which I've never seen, and I need to watch that because I'm a big wrestling fan. Wes Anderson for The Grand Budapest Hotel, and Morton Taylor for The Imitation Game. And I'm just looking as well, Best Actor, Matthew McConaughey doesn't get a nomination. I'm just shocked.
wow, wow.
Eddie Redmayne won that year for The Theory of Everything, and that is a great performance. But I was like, why is that not nominated?
Did
Why is it
Matthew
not nominated?
McConaughey not win for Best Actor in one of them?
He won
Not
for Dallas Buyers Club. I'm sure he won.
was it Dallas Buyers Club? Okay, because that was a good performance as well.
Yeah.
But Interstellar, like you said, I thought that's the best performance he's ever done.
I
But I
mean,
do love
I've
that scene
not
in Wolf of
seen.
Wall Street. The
That's true. That's true. Well, he's not going to win an award for that anyway.
that was fantastic. They should. They should.
Best cameo in a movie.
Best cameo.
No, but I've not seen. He's got such a big back catalogue. It's like, how are you going to get around someone like Matthew McConaughey? But from what I've seen, this performance always stands out for me in terms of his best performances. Anyway, yeah,
Yeah, I can agree with that. There's a lot. Again, there's a lot of big stars that have been in so much. It's like I sometimes ask myself, like, how are they going to top this? What are they going to do next? Like Leonardo DiCaprio, for all people have their criticisms of him, I think he's one of the best actors
of
of
all
all
time,
time.
100%.
Of
Yeah,
all time. There's Shutter Island is very underrated. That's it's not Spielberg. That's Scorsese,
yeah. We did it on the podcast like a year ago or so, and
and it's quite underrated for Scorsese, isn't it?
it's a bit. I bet he's someone that's got so many massive films as well. You know, sometimes you kind of get lost, in kind of the shuffle. But I'm just looking through Christopher Nolan's other filmography, and you mentioned his kind of trademark. I'm really interested by that. You know, like different directors' trademarks and stuff. You know, if you know what you know what to look for, you see it in the films. You know, like J.J. Abrams with like these flash beams, and
Yeah, yeah.
Wes Anderson with his beautiful landscape backgrounds and stuff. You know, so yeah, Christopher Nolan is time is his trademark. But sometimes it's just like, how did you think of this? You know what I mean? Because almost it's so confusing. The only films that don't really have that issue are the Dark Knight films. The things like The Prestige, Memento,
Oh yeah.
Dunkirk, Tenet, Interstellar, Inception, all of these, did I say The Prestige? All of these are just like total mind-numbing films, you know? But like so good that you don't mind it, you know, because you kind of want to go and learn more about it, you know? Would you say this is your favourite Christopher Nolan film?
Yeah, I can say, yeah, close second Inception, just because of how
Yeah.
complex it is. Like you were saying, I've watched it a few times and I've picked up on a few different things here and there, but I'm still on the overall concept of Inception. I'm still trying to like, okay, how does this work? Because it's a dream within a dream within a dream. It's like, okay, right, how does that work? And you try and visualize it, but you can't.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it special. I mean, there's a few moments in that film that stood out to me as the one on the train tracks, or when his wife obviously jumps. That was a good little twist in there. Obviously, that he was responsible for her believing
Yeah.
that the dream's reality. I thought that was a nice little twist because Leo was always playing the good kind of guy leading man, but it's recently that his roles have started really standing out to
Yeah.
me.
Once
Which
Upon a Time in
again,
Hollywood and things like that. Yeah.
oh yeah, and even him playing Candyman in Django or Mr. Candy.
There's a
Like
performance.
that,
Absolutely.
that was a brilliant movie. I think that's my favorite Quentin movie. Aside aside from Kill Bill Volume One, I think it's very good as well.
Yeah. Pulp
Uh,
Fiction. It's so hard to pick.
oh, there's that many, but Leo, yeah, like even Shutter Island, like that scene when you find out that he's
Yeah.
the last you know
Patient.
inmate,
Yeah.
and that scene when his wife obviously kills the children. It's such a dark scene in the river, but
Unbelievable.
it's such a powerful scene. And I've always wondered, like with the acting, I've done a few roles now, and you'll find this as well. There's some things that really just get you in the zone,
Yeah.
but when it's a scene like that and you have to proper break down, I've still not quite figured that out yet as to what would make me cry like that. I've had a few ideas of. Have you ever heard of Eddie Hall? You will have. Ed, the strongest man at one point.
Yeah.
To lift the weight he did, 500 kg, he went to a therapist or a psycho, and I can't remember what the name of it is, but they gave him this scenario and they told him it over and over in such detail that in his head he really visualized this horrible accident happen to his family. So he
Wow.
lifted the weight because of that. And there's little things like that that I don't believe in full method
Yeah.
acting. But there's some things like that, for example, I've thought, okay, maybe I would consider that because some roles and performances, again, Shutter Island when he's holding his dead children, it's so sad and it's so vulnerable.
Yeah. How do you even get
And
to that point? Yeah.
exactly, it must take because like you'll be the same. Like it's really you get those moments on set where you feel how absurd it clicks with you, how absurd everything is. It's like okay, there's a camera filming me pretending to live my life in a cafe. It's like,
And there's all
what?
these people. Yeah. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's the
definitely.
same with a lot of scenes. Like I know that obviously the Game of Thrones stuff, like the sex scenes and all that. Henry
Right.
Cavill spoke recently as well about how uncomfortable that is. You're trying to be close, and then you've got all these like heavy set cameramen just
Crazy, man.
watching you, and like all of that. Like, how do you as an actor feel like you get past that sometimes? Because
Yeah.
I get constantly that again. Directing's a bit more comfy because you don't have to really open yourself up. Like for you, do you have any like methods or anything that you can just kind of zone in on and forget everything's there?
There's stuff that I try, like obviously like the substitution thing. You try and like think of someone that you love in a terrible situation or whatever, right? But I've never managed to crack that, personally and professionally. You know what I mean? Like I did a film one time where I was a terminally ill guy, and I thought I was in a good place for that. Not a good place, and in the right place for the film anyway. Um, and we were doing it on set and stuff, and it went well, and we hit all the points, and yeah, it felt good when we filmed it. And then when I watched it back, I was like, I don't think I nailed that like I thought I did. So
Mm,
sometimes it's like maybe you feel it, but it doesn't come across like you want it to. So I'm still trying to get to that stage where you get a bit of both.
yeah.
I remember being in drama school and trying these exercises, and I remember us all in class one time standing in a big circle, and our lecturer put her jacket in the middle of the room, just a jacket that she wore that morning. And she's like, "This jacket means the most to you in the world. You would give your life to save whatever this jacket represents.
Mm,
Try and find a reason to save this jacket." And there was people in the class who were just great at it, just running in, grabbing the jacket, crying. Aaron Dockard, who started the podcast with me all these years ago, who's actually doing the spin-off of The Witcher, actually.
all right.
He's an extra in that, yeah. I remember him vividly because one of my best friends, and he's just like bawling, crying. There's like snot coming out his nose and stuff. And I'm just like standing there going, I don't know if I can do this. Yeah, I don't know. I can't reach that stage.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm still trying to find, how to get as into it as maybe I should be. It's
I
hard.
think it is. It's very hard, and it's hard because you've got to sort of figure yourself out, which is the hardest thing in life. All these people are like, I'm going on a trip, and I'm gonna find myself. It's like, good luck. It's harder than it looks.
Yeah,
Like all these
absolutely.
self-discovery journeys. But the best advice I've gotten recently, when it comes to a really emotional scene, is don't cry. Like try and hold it in rather than
It's
sob.
more powerful,
Try and
right?
hold it in, and then you will actually begin to tear up and kind of try and believe it yourself. But it's that saying, isn't it, of if you don't cry and you're fighting back the tears, the audience will cry for you.
Yeah.
In certain scenarios, it's one of those. But I think the biggest thing is there's all this method and stuff, but I think a lot of it comes down to how the other performers make you feel. Like if the way they speak to you, the energy on set, if they're giving you the right stuff to react off of, that essentially is what acting is, really, isn't it? It's
Absolutely.
making the other person feel, and it's such a learning process because like a couple of years ago, like when I was doing drama stuff, I've just finished a diploma actually acting out in Edinburgh.
Cool.
So I was learning a few things there as well. But like it's such simple like ideologies, but it's so hard to adapt to that and actually make something of it. It's easy to say it, but to
Yeah.
actually do it, it's so hard. So I've got so much respect for any actor. I mean, going back to with Dark Devices, like all you guys gelled so well. The performance felt so genuine, and I was so happy with that. And watching you guys perform it lets me pick up on things as an actor because
Right.
when I'm directing, I'm picking up on the acting. When I'm acting, I'm picking up on the directing, which is kind of like a crappy thing sometimes
That's true
because
though.
I'll
It
be
happens.
sitting
You
there.
just learn from all different aspects of the film, right? Like you would never
Yeah,
think about studying lighting before, but then after years of doing it, you realize like this light's going to do this, and this is going to help
uh,
for this shot and stuff. So yeah, definitely, that's definitely a valid point.
yeah, and sometimes it can be a bit of a curse because recently I done a short film. I was acting in it, and I was sat. It was a living room scene, and the kitchen's connected to the living room, and I was just watching the director, and I was like, I wouldn't do it this way.
Right.
And it's kind of that thing of like you've just got to put the wall up and be like, okay, I'm not director on this, so it doesn't matter. I'm here to act, and it's hard to balance the both. Like John
Yeah.
Krasinski that does A Quiet Place, he directed it,
Right.
starred in it, brilliant. That is so hard to do.
And it's his real life wife.
Of course, yeah.
How did he
makes
do
it a wee
that?
bit, makes it a wee bit easier, I guess. But imagine though, And Cherry Red, the short film I done last year, it's only 10 to 15 minutes long maximum. And I was directing it and acting in it, and it becomes the most. If you've not got the experience, it can totally shut your mind down because I'm trying
Yeah.
to act and I'm thinking, where's the camera at? What's
Right.
happening with this? All this stuff's going through my head, so I can't feel the moment. And then directing, I'm like, oh, what am I going to do in my next scene here? Oh, I've got to cry. And it's just
Yeah, I
too
guess you
much.
just need to you need to get that balance of let it's not your problem when you're the
Yeah.
actor, let them kind of deal with it and the camera will find you sort of thing. Last wee point on the kind of time aspect of it, right? Did you see the new Buzz Lightyear film?
Yes.
Right? When he was going out, I don't want to spoil it 'cause I know it's really new, but when he was going out and doing the mission in space and failing, and then coming back in, the time had changed from the time he got to wherever it was the moon or whatever. That reminded me of Interstellar. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know how I would cope with that. Like, I mean, obviously, films like Kill Bill and even The Walking Dead is a good example as well. When you're in like a coma or whatever, you're in for so long. When you wake up, it's like nothing happened, and it's 3 years later or whatever. I don't know how I'd deal with that. And I thought the Lightyear film was really good, actually.
It was. It was quite that. I know what moment you're talking about when he comes back
Yeah,
and then his friend. Yeah, it's that made me
yeah,
cry.
heartbreaking, actually, isn't it?
Yeah. And you saying that, I think if it was to actually happen to you, it must be that surreal that you don't actually quite react. When you're like
Mm.
bewildered, you're kind of just, what?
Yeah, mesmerized a bit. Yeah,
Yeah, it'd be so weird to get your head around that. And Interstellar, going back to that, imagine coming back and your daughter's like double
oh,
your age. It's like, what? It just
absolutely
wouldn't
crazy.
feel, it would feel so odd. Lightyear, it was a good movie, actually. Um, I'll not say too much again because it's a recent,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to spoil it for people.
I think it's really good. So this is the Good Bit podcast. We talk about all the best parts of the film. Can you please tell me what you think the best bit or your favorite bit of Interstellar is?
Ooh. Ooh.
Favorite scene. Favorite scene.
Favorite scene. Favorite scene is the one when he walks into the hospital ward and his daughter's lying in her to be deathbed,
Yeah.
and there's a little dialogue exchange there. There's so much the actors give off so much respect to one another. It feels as genuine as it could be. We're talking about how surreal that is to see your daughter double your age or more, but it's such a touching scene about sacrifice, about purpose, about mutual love for each other. Yeah, that's my favorite. That's my absolute favorite of the movie. It makes me cry every time. Uh, I love it. But there's a little moment. It's not really a scene, like you mentioned it. There's a little moment when he's driving away from the house, and you
Yeah.
can see the utmost pain in his face. That's a phenomenal part as well. And the music's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. The scene of him driving away really hits you because you see them like out the back window of the car, but he's not looking
Mhm.
at them. He's just got this
Yeah,
despair in his face. But my favorite bit would be when he's looking through the kind of bookshelf that I mentioned earlier on. That was the one that really stuck with me.
hmm
Like trying to connect with her, but just couldn't. Like it's such a moving scene
yeah,
and like an achievement really. And Nolan's great for that, man. Like really pushing the boundaries and being like, let's try this. If it doesn't work, I tried,
yeah.
and someone will have an opinion on it. So that's guess what we're here for to chat about these things. But yeah, absolutely great choice for Interstellar. Tell us what you've got coming up next. I know you're always busy acting and directing and stuff. And where can people find you on the socials?
So trying to keep busy. So I run a page called CSMG Productions. It's one that I'm a CEO of. I founded it. It's a small time production company. It's to give others a chance to tell their story. It's about you know telling stories that wouldn't quite often be greenlit by big studios because there's not a guarantee of this big money coming in. That's why Strawberry Milkshake's a recent one that'll be coming out soon, but it's an art house film. So there's all these weird little concepts that you wouldn't get the chance anywhere else to tell. So working through CSMG and collaborating, that's something that's ongoing at the minute. And through that, I've just started writing the feature film for Cult of Elves. So we've got the short
Cool.
film coming out next year that's hopefully going to drive the feature film, but we've also got a book adaptation coming out, and it should be releasing October 10th next year, which is the hope. So October 10th, 2023. It's a new fantasy story that's written by me. I'm very proud of it, and I think I can say genuinely that I feel it's the best thing I've ever written. It's the most original. Um, for me, I feel like it's my Game of Thrones. We'll not give it that much of a. I don't want to put too much pressure on
Yeah,
it
it's
before it
your
comes
baby
out.
though, right? Yeah.
It's yeah, and it's a modern day fantasy, so it's a fantasy with a twist. The elves that you follow in it are actually mutations of humans. It's a birth defect, and
Cool.
it's sort of showing about how it's about identity and the future and purpose and hope. Again, purpose, which links with Interstellar. So yeah, I'm busy, but you can find a lot of stuff on CSMG Productions. There'll be a few more things on YouTube, a few more announcements soon. So yeah,
Brilliant.
check it out.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I know we've been trying to do this for ages since we actually met. We kind of was chatting about it. So glad we finally got to do it. You're welcome back anytime.
It's been a pleasure. No, it's
yeah.
been. Thanks for having me, and hopefully when Dark Devices releases, we can actually talk a bit more about it.
Yeah, we'll do an episode. Maybe we could talk about that film. I don't know.
Well, that's it. I'd be happy. I'd be happy to come back. There's a lot to talk about with Dark Devices, which I'm sure we're both very proud of. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to if you have me back, I'll come on.
You can come back anytime. Open invitation. There we go. Thank you everybody for listening, for watching this episode of the Good Bit Podcast. Take care of yourselves, and we'll catch you all down the road.
Citizens